Chris, preparing our athlete for a CrossFit warm-up.
I'm Kyle. I'll be coaching the warm-up for today's CrossFit workout.
I'm Sanjay, and I'm an athlete going through the CrossFit workout for today.
In today's CrossFit WOD, we're going to run our athlete through a progression of overhead squats, kettlebell swings, and kipping pull-ups. In order to prepare them for this, our athlete will go through a general warm-up and then move on to specific movement patterns. Through these, we are looking to mobilize the shoulders, the hips, back, and the ankles. The following clips will demonstrate the proper form and technique in order to achieve the overhead squat, the kettlebell swing, and the kipping pull-up. Please enjoy. Next, our athlete is going through an overhead squat progression. They're going to start with a snatch grip, which is wider than their back squat grip, and then top bar up. In order to overhead squat, their feet are going to be a little bit wider than hip width apart. And in preparation for the squat, they're going to have a posterior hip drive. Make sure to keep their back flat with the bar overhead, driving up. Here we can see some of the immobility issues of the athlete that we will address in our warm-up of the ankle, the hips, and the shoulder. This is not uncommon to see, but our warm-up will prepare athletes for the overhead squat as well as others.
We're now going to have the athlete demonstrate a kettlebell swing. We're going to focus on the American variation because that's the accepted variation in CrossFit. Now to begin, we're going to have the athlete position the kettlebell with both hands in between his legs. He's going to use his hips to drive and create the swing. And the American variation, the kettlebell stops directly overhead. We have to be sure to keep the athlete with a neutral spine, having the natural lordotic and kyphotic curves of the spine. We're now going to demonstrate the kipping pull-up. To begin, the athlete will grab the bar just wider than shoulder width apart, like a normal pull-up grip. He's going to then drive his hips and shoulders forward and then retract to develop the kipping motion. He's then going to do the pull-up using his hips to tug, using that kip to develop the motion to do the pull-up more efficiently.
From here, we will move into the general warm-up as well as the specific movement patterns needed to perform the overhead squat, kettlebell swing, and the kipping pull-up.
So to start, we're just going to start up with a general warm-up, 5 to 10 minutes on the treadmill just to warm up the muscles, increase the heart rate, and reduce the joint viscosity. Next, we're going to do a passive warm-up using the foam roller. What you're going to do is you're going to have your athlete positioned so that the base of his ribs are on the foam roller, and then what you're going to have him do is you're going to have him place his arms over his head, extending the back. Hold that for 15 to 30 seconds, and then come up and repeat another repetition. We're using this so that to prepare the back, the lower back for the extension in the American kettlebell swing. After doing that, you can also use the foam roller to passively stretch out your legs, both legs. And we'll do this just to warm up the lower body for the overhead squat.
Going to continue their general warm-up and isolate the shoulder some. We're going to have them perform jumping jacks for 30 seconds and then transition to arm circles, moving forward and backwards with the addition of some external and internal rotation of the shoulder for 15 to 30 seconds as well. Next, our athlete is going to perform lying dumbbell screwdrivers, light resistance to focus on the shoulder mobility, and which is utilized for the overhead squat as well as the kipping pull-up. Here our athlete is beginning lying on their side, and then they're going to laterally abduct their shoulder before performing external and internal rotation of the shoulder. This can also be viewed by the supination and pronation of the wrist, attached to the lever of the humerus, which also produces external and internal rotation of the shoulder. The athlete can go through this range of motion multiple times, bilaterally, up to 30 seconds.
Next, we're going to move on to the wall brace shoulder abduction. In doing this, we're looking to improve shoulder mobility needed for the kettlebell swing, the kipping pull-up, and the overhead squat. While we do this, we're looking specifically to increase, or rather improve the scapular-thoracic tracking. You're going to have your athlete go up against the wall, make sure to keep the back of his palms and his elbows against the wall, and he's going to bring his arms overhead until his hands touch his top. While doing this, you want to make sure that you keep your elbows against the wall. He's going to then come back down, and he's going to complete this for 10 to 12 reps. Yeah, make sure to keep that elbows against the wall. Similar to the wall brace shoulder abduction, next we're going to do the shoulder hyperextension. You're going to have your athlete go up against the wall and just lean into it, hyperextending the shoulder. Again, we're going to look to increase shoulder mobility for overhead movements in the kipping pull-up. You're going to make sure to do this bilaterally at least twice on each side. And hold for 15 to 30 seconds.
In addition to shoulder mobility, we also find that many athletes struggle with hip immobility issues. We need to target that in order to prepare these athletes for performance of the overhead squat, the kettlebell swing, and the kipping pull-up. Here we're going to transition our athlete into two different variations of the lunge to target their hips. Here our athlete is going to assume a forward lunge position, working to isolate the right hip flexor as they lean back into this lunge. This position is going to be performed bilaterally and held for 15 to 30 seconds. As the athlete backs out of this lunge position, they can extend further into a deep lunge variation and make a conscious effort to drive their knee laterally and oscillate through this range of motion. As they slowly move through this range of motion, they are working on their external rotators of the gluteus, as well as some of the sartorius and the quadriceps. This athlete will see mobility gains in the overhead squat, as well as the kettlebell swing, as this mobility is increased. Next, our athlete is going to focus on ankle mobility, as it is needed to pursue a full range of motion in the bottom of an overhead squat. Here they will support their ankle against the wall for a static ankle dorsiflexion. This stretch will be held for 15 to 30 seconds and performed bilaterally on each side. Throughout this warm-up and flexibility video, we've emphasized the need to focus bilaterally when you're stretching and mobilizing your joints through a range of motion. The reasoning behind this is we want to avoid any discrepancies between joint range of motion and the athlete's performance. We need to make sure that we are eliciting the same stretches for both sides of the body to prevent injury, as well as provide a balanced warm-up for the athlete. We have also emphasized the need for stretches to be held 15 to 30 seconds, and that is due to the NSCA guidelines and the standards set for stretching, as athletes will receive the most benefit in their range of motion in that time frame between 15 and 30 seconds. Exceeding that 30 seconds mark is not going to improve an athlete's range of motion at all.
Thank you for tuning in. I hope that you can use these tools and make use of them in your future CrossFit workouts.